I'm trying to say her name so to make sure I honor her. So she was explaining to me how to say. So I want to welcome Despina this morning and this afternoon, I guess, where I am, wherever you are. I'm on Central Time now. So welcome. I was looking at your funnel, and girl, you don't look old
Serious.
enough to have lived through all of this. And
It's
I just want,
Jesus.
I know,
He
I just want to honor.
restores.
He restores, yes. But I want to honor you for your vulnerability and your willingness. What an inspiration to us all to share what so many hide. Because something that I was just thinking of in my interview just before with Carol, we didn't touch on this, but secrets imprison you. You
Absolutely.
know, they leave you, you can't move forward. There's no freedom. So I saw in your when I was looking at some of your things you shared, I was like, she's willing to tell the truth,
Hmm.
and I think that is something I want to um, really bring out to today. Even just starting with what got you to the place of stepping out and saying, "This is my story."
So I actually knew from my early 20s because of the hits that I was taking so early in my life. There's something that I knew in my spirit. I'm like, this is not, I'm not just living this because I'm living this. I'm living this to be able to help others because there's no way that I'm going through this stuff and we're not going to have some sort of victory come from it. So I always knew
Wow.
that I was going to help people. I had no idea it was going to unfold and have a name and have this, you know, that the underlying root cause of all of this was actually so running so rampant in the earth right now.
Mm.
And so, I just thought, so just to kind of give you a quick little insert.
Oh yeah.
So I was married straight out of college, and my I got married, but my husband didn't. And so I thought I was going to be helping women who had gone through betrayal, and how do you go through that, and how do you live through that? Because that was my first big obvious blow. And little did I know that it was going to turn into this whole other thing, and that there was a lot more under the surface that I didn't even know. So,
Wow. So you
so I
started so
always,
young,
I
but
always wanted it.
you must be a powerhouse to stand up in your 20s, and say, "Hey, I'm not going to put up with this anymore." Like not a lot of people do that. A lot of people take to 40 or 50.
Well, what's wild is, so that was just that situation. So like I went through the whole, okay, let's see, are we going to reconcile? Is there even a hope? And then the Lord just gave me a green light, and He's like, no, no, baby, you don't have to stick around for any more of this. And I'm like, okay, don't say no more. I'm done.
Wow.
But then when I started encountering these narcissists, because my first husband was not a narcissist, but when I started encountering these narcissists, it was a whole other thing. And it wasn't until my second husband that someone said to me, we was one of our biggest altercations of the marriage. And I went to a friend's house. They had Bible study on a Friday night, and there was a man that came to me, and he was praying over me, and he said, "If I told you that there will be women at the point of taking their lives, and they will hear your story and decide not to, would this be worth it?"
Wow.
So I had no idea what he
Wow.
was referring to. This was 10 years before my worst
Um,
dynamic, my most toxic dynamic to date. Um, and but he was kind of letting me know back then, hey, that there is going to be a story of redemption that comes from it, and what the enemy meant to destroy you will save many alive. So I'm like,
wow.
okay.
That's incredible. Like just to think about as you look back over your life. I'm 53, so I can look back over my life, and you see how it all flows. even
Mm-hmm.
the most tragic and the
Mm-hmm.
most painful. And you're like, wow, this is the woman I am today because of this, and this. And I see that in you. And
Mm-hmm.
you're, dealing, like, touch on this now. We throw that word around,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? Um, but I dealt with one of my children's, uh, my son's girlfriend for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was literally being taken to hell and back as a mom,
Mm-hmm.
not with her every day. Now, she did stay in my house for 8 months, like together, right? It was one of the most tragic things I ever thought I would experience. But then I actually realized it was building my muscles for the more that was to come.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, touch on that for people. Some people don't recognize. Now, we can't go around calling everybody because we all have
No.
narcissistic tendency in some way. Like, we're all selfish, like,
Right. It
so,
goes much. It's really funny that you pulled on this, and that it must
yeah.
be the Lord. But I just did a post in a narcissistic abuse recovery group just this week, just a couple
Wow.
days ago,
Wow.
about how it irks me. I said this is a mini rant, deep thoughts post. I said, but it really gets under my skin the way people throw that term around and use it so lightly and so flippantly. I'm like, I don't know if it's my internet or what.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It was so weird. I was interviewing this guy from 100X last week, and it started going wild, and I was like, "What is happening?" My whole computer was freaking out, and it must be the frequency of what you're walking in. So now start again about you were posting in your recovery narcissistic.
Yeah. So I posted in the recovery group about how it irks me. I'm looking for the post right now. How it irks me that people use that term so flippantly and
Mm,
so loosely. And when you really have experienced someone who truly is one of these, though that word has a whole different weight, and it invokes a whole different level of emotion.
yeah.
And that whole thing, and so my post was, let me see if I hope I can find it, because it was good, and people's responses were so right on.
Wow.
And I appreciated, because I said, how do you differentiate? And I'm going to use a little bit of, language that is used in this group because it's raw,
Yeah.
and people are raw with it. Let me see. Oh goodness, I may not be able to find it, but give me one more second.
I know how when I write something and I want to term it the way that it came out, because it's just sometimes we get these things and then we never can repeat.
Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
So I said, it really bothers me when people throw the term narcissist around lightly or flippantly, or assign it to people who are not truly narcissists. In my opinion, all narcissists are deeply and toxically wounded and behaviorally immature. And the degree that is true varies, but definitely way more than non-narcs. But not all wounded and emotionally immature people are narcissists. I said some people need a lot of healing and to grow up. They need a lot of lessons in personal responsibility. But that in and of itself does not make them a narcissist. And I said, I wonder what people would label those non-narc people who are just, because man, there are plenty of wounded people out there, and they act out of their wounds and they bleed all over others.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them a narcissist. That just makes them wounded, and they need love and heart healing. And there's plenty of people who deflect responsibility and don't take any.
Yeah.
But this is what I got, both from the group and just as I talked about their thoughts more. I'm not going to share that little pointed part, but it's two things. One, the lack of empathy, because the lack of personal responsibility is big, but that's a sign of immaturity. It's not necessarily a narcissistic trait.
Yeah. Very true.
But the lack of empathy is.
Yeah.
Because they can rip you to shreds and not bat an eye.
Yeah.
And verbally chew you up and spit you out, and just, or see you writhing from an assault, whether it's verbal, emotional, mental, whatever, and just walk right on by. So
Yeah.
that I think is one key differentiator. And the other is the self-absorption. So it's one thing to be selfish, and it's another to be so self-absorbed that nobody else exists. Everybody else exists to feed you and whatever your insatiable need is.
Wow.
Most of the time, it's attention. And I have some examples of that are pretty tough.
Yeah.
I had one of the people in my life. We were at a funeral, and they found a way to make that funeral about them. I'm like, can the man have his day? He died. Like, it's really not about you and your drama right now.
Wow.
I'm like,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So and
at the core of the person, they're so devastated and like they've tuned out, like they're literally checked out. When you talk about shattering and people disassociation, this narcissism is a whole other check out. Mm-hmm. And they just can't even tap into their conscience. Like I had this girl say to me, well, why should I care about your family? I'm like, because that's my son, like I'm his mom. Like I started to get confused.
Yes.
It was so extreme. I didn't even know what narcissism was. This is back in 2015. I found this article. And it had 20 things. And
yes. Those checklists are powerful.
I was like, whoa, I never heard of this before in my life. And it was everything. That's one thing, if it's everything extreme on that list.
Yes.
And another thing is like, they don't just let you alone. They will come back. They'll leave like a water bottle, or they have a reason to connect with you. Mm-hmm. And you are their target. Yes. And to get away from being a target is, yeah. So I love mm-hmm. that you're touching on that. Mm-hmm. I know that you're going deeper into, not just, narcissism, but to really understand like road to relationship relief. Mm-hmm. I thought if my son was to marry this girl, yeah, how could I live through this? Mm-hmm. And that was only 3 years. Mm-hmm. And God actually, I have a whole story. I'm probably going to write a book about that journey because how God turned it around for my heart. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine someone living with this for 20 years. Now, you mentioned you have family members, and mm-hmm. I do as well, where it's just kind of like you'll say like, oh, I'm so tired. And like, well, can you imagine what it was like for me when I had, it's like it's always about that. And you're like, how can't you just give me, some validation mm-hmm. in the present? Can we just be in the present here? I'm in major pain, and could you help me? But they honestly can't think like that. They can't. So that's something to really, and we beat ourselves up. I found myself doing things I never thought I would do, like acting out of character, yes. Like I would be like, did I actually do that?
One of my red flags was and this is how I kind of started on the road to unmasking this thing, was I was finding myself angry. I'm not an angry person. Yeah. And I actually went to counseling. I'm like, dude, wow. I'm not an angry person. What's going on? He's like, you're having a healthy response to an abusive situation. I'm like, wow. Oh, is that all?
Wow.
But there we go. And so that started me on the trail sniffing
it out. You. And you said you had like 9 different scenarios. 6. Mm-hmm. Okay, 6. Well, yeah. It's a lot. So I just am excited that you're doing this. Mm-hmm. And Road to Relationship Relief is actually a great title, I think, because it's kind of just says it. Like, it's just like Dr. Janet last week said, happy, healthy dogs. It's kind of like Road to Relationship Relief. It's like straight up, come on, let me help you.
What it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that you have 3 biggest secrets for decoding. And so you're going to walk through this. So basically you want to help people who, tell me a little bit about that. You're who?
Okay. So I run this Kickstart once a quarter. And my purpose in choosing this particular content that I've chosen is I want to be able to throw people the lifeline that I wish I had had sooner. Yeah. I remember asking this particular counselor, I remember saying to him, does this thing have a name? Like, this seems so textbook, like these behaviors that this man is engaged in, they seem so textbook. He's like, no, no, it's just demonic. And I'm like,
Wow.
I know, but it's got a name, dude. And sure enough, part of, again, back to the breadcrumbs, part of how I was able to put the pieces together and come up with the name
Yeah.
is I found a YouTube video that was, it was like a couple hours long, I think, or I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. And it was called Jezebel and Her Demon Clusters.
Ooh. Yeah.
Took
Wow.
6 pages of notes, went through and highlighted in 2 colors
Wow.
my origin
Yeah.
offender and my my husband at the time. And it was so interesting to see the dots line up and see
Wow.
where they had things in common and where it was one and the other was the other, and then what they had in common. And I was like,
Wow.
whoa.
Wow.
And so for me, knowing, like, connecting that was like, whoa. Because I know what I've been dealing with the other one my entire, literally since birth. And
Yeah.
so I know what that looks like, and I know how it's played out in their life, and that hasn't gotten better.
Yeah.
No matter how much counseling they've gone to, and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and deliverance, everything,
Yeah.
and they're still the same, even to this very
Wow.
day. And
Wow.
so I'm like, I don't need to stay in this. This is the same thing. This is not going away. So I'm out.
You should actually have a barometer.
I
You know.
do.
Yeah.
I have this whole scale. I
Wow.
call it, like, I forget how I termed it, but I do. It's the whole, like, how it's almost like a toxicity scale. Like,
Yeah.
how much damage, because in of the 6, they all kind of fall in different,
Yeah.
one of them was relatively benign,
Yeah.
kind of again, relatively harmless.
They come
Then,
in different
the other
forms.
one was kind of here, and the other one was kind of here, and then the last one was here.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a
Different
spectrum.
forms, right? But you feel the same. So when you start feeling that feeling of you're not happy, you're not being yourself, there's things that come up.
The big thing to look for, and this is why I have my ads the way I do and my graphics the way I do, and I even ran these terms by my recovery group. That hamster wheel, when you feel like you're on a mental and emotional hamster wheel and you cannot get off this thing, and you're like, but why did they do this? And who does that? And you're in this, like, and you're like, did I just see what I just saw? Did I just
It,
experience that? And then if you try to check with them, obviously they're going to gaslight you. So they're going to flip it and reframe it, and it's going to be something totally different. Then you're questioning your own sanity, and
yeah,
you're in this whole thing, right? So
yeah,
that's one. If you're experiencing something like that, you need to come to my challenge. And the other one is the drama tornado, where you're just humming along in life, doing your thing, and then everything's freaking drama, and you're like, why does everything have to be so difficult? Like,
wow.
it's not. It doesn't have to be this hard, really. So
Mhm.
that little thing inside you is saying it shouldn't be this hard, and it shouldn't be this, much of
Yeah,
a thing. Everything shouldn't just be this much of a thing. You're probably in one of these toxic dynamics, and you should
mhm,
come to
yes. And a lot of these can be, mothers, sisters, fathers, brothers, but a lot of times girlfriends, like your best girlfriend who is always gaslighting you and you don't even know it starts when you're teens, young. And something I realized is other people don't see what's happening because they don't know your trigger. So they think, "Oh, that's so sweet,"
Mhm.
and you're like, "They just dissed me and
Yeah.
demean me." And what happens is you get invalidated in a
Yes.
public situation where all of a sudden you don't exist because they just disqualified you to everybody in the room, right?
It's something.
Yeah, and you can't fight it, and you can't fight it. So there's all these feelings that you have. So if you're going through a relationship like this, and I'm sure all of us have it at one time or the other, but oh Lord, to live like that for so many years with the same person, whether it's family, spouse, child, it could be your own child, learning how to set those
Yes.
boundaries. And boundaries isn't a word that I actually like. I never really wanted to have boundaries because I feel freedom.
Yeah.
But in the last 2 years, I had situations that came up that I've been treated in ways I've never even imagined with
Mhm.
people on the outskirts because of a life tragedy, right?
Yeah.
And I had to set boundaries.
Mhm.
I won't respond when someone puts me into a Facebook group with everybody and I'm the I'm the bone in the middle of the dog bed.
You
I'm like,
know
you guys
it.
have fun. See,
Check out.
yeah,
Eject. Pull the parachute. I'm out.
yeah, I don't need to be a part of this conversation because you try to
Mhm.
that's another thing. You want to defend yourself, but
Mhm.
there's
Oh,
never a defense. There's never a defense.
so just, my original was my mother.
Wow.
So imagine, and I try to be as respectful and honoring as I can, but still share the realities of what this looks like. And the thing is, when it's the person, you're supposed to be the nurturer and all of the things that mothers are, and that's not what you get. And then when there's a term called smear campaign, and that's when they go around and they push their spin on certain situations and make you look a certain way in front of everybody. And if that's, like you said, it's that subtle little and the accumulation over time of that in a family dynamic. And I'm Greek, so I come from a very tight,
Yeah.
large family.
Yeah.
And so it's just poison.
Mhm.
And just what she did in my nuclear family to create division between my brother and my father and I. And so after I uncovered all of this and was able to share it with them,
Yeah.
they cope totally differently, because the injury is different and their version um, of injury is different. Um, and what the other accumulation of all the others that I've had in my life also kind of
Yeah.
impacted my ability to cope with her.
Mhm.
And so, because now it's been I went 2 years and didn't speak to her at all. Like,
Wow.
I just needed to detox, and I didn't need any additional injections of poison.
I like how you put that injections of
That's
poison.
what it is, because
I
every time you're around them, you get dosed with something. So you kind of have to drain all the poison as much as possible so that you can take some exposure.
It's
And
true.
so it's wild because now I'm at the point where I'm starting to allow some exposure again. But I had to slowly, kind of gradually reintroduce exposure because I
Wow.
was very triggered in the beginning. And I was like, nope. And every time I was triggered, I'm like, not ready yet. And I would check myself, and then I would give myself space. And then so now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay. And then so this is another part of, I don't go over this particular part of it in this kickstart, because really this kickstart is about the lifeline. The information that for me would have been a lifeline if I would have learned it 20 years sooner.
I
So
understand.
I want people to have that information now for free as soon as they can get it
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
So that's the important part. And then I also want them to kind of get a feel for me and how I talk and how I share and just how I roll. Because if
Wow.
they connect with me on that level, then I'm going to be their girl and we can do this whole thing together. And
Wow.
I will walk with them through whatever part of this journey that they're on. And for those who it's a parent, it's a different dynamic to deal with. It's a spouse, it's a different dynamic. It's a friend, it's a different, and I've lived all
Yeah. Which brings all the overcoming and journey, like, even that you've taken the 2 years away. Now that's very painful.
of them. It
Um,
is, because I
to
felt like it was like a death.
Yeah, and then
Like,
it
I
affects
had to literally check out and say
yeah.
she's dead.
Wow.
Like, whatever happens in my life, like, I even had to go through the thought process of what would happen if my father passed. How would I handle the funeral? If she passed, how would I handle it?
Wow.
And how was I going to look in front of the whole family who already thinks I'm whatever she has portrayed me as?
Yeah.
And the thing is, about what you said earlier about defending yourself, I had to make the decision that I wasn't going to defend myself. That I was going to let everybody believe what they needed to believe, because I needed to focus on my healing.
Yeah.
And the ones who wanted to know the truth would either already know the truth or they would seek it out.
Mm.
But I wasn't going to go and try to defend myself. I was going to let the Lord be my defender
Yeah.
and let the truth speak for itself.
Whoa, girl, that's so good. It's exactly where I am in my life. And it's hard because you want to be the nice person that everybody, you know, has known to be the nice person. And then all of a sudden you're not in their eyes. And it's like, it's hard to not receive that lie. This is Janet Taylor. Her name's not coming up on there
Mm-hmm.
that wrote this, you know. Thank you for sharing that, Janet. I feel like it's important as you know, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that's been the hardest thing. And I think you would agree
Mm-hmm.
is to allow myself to block somebody,
Yeah.
to unfriend somebody,
Mm-hmm.
to not respond to somebody because I can't fix this. I'm a person who loves to, you know, heal and encourage and inspire.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have these, I've been called capital liar. Like, and I'm like, I've always been about truth, but through the decisions I had to make, I withheld information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to
Mm-hmm.
for my own, pers- like, you know, to preserve.
Yeah.
But in that, then the enemy used it to turn at me. So, you know, I have to be careful what I share because there's so much, you know, with
Mm-hmm.
our stuff, information getting out there. But really, I still love them,
Yeah.
but I don't love how they make me feel. And
Agreed.
they cannot treat me the same anymore.
Agreed.
So we do not have, it's sad because we've lost a relationship, but did we really? That's what I was thinking about this week. Did we really lose? Wasn't it fake anyway?
Mm-hmm. So here's what's interesting, even in what I'm learning on my journey, and I like that I can now bring this to others who are where I was 2 years ago.
Mm.
I had an experience with my mom a couple weeks ago, and I saw. Usually, I see the enemy working through her at others, using her as a weapon towards others. But that day, when we were around each other, I saw him turn on her, and he was robbing her peace. So instead of infecting others and doing the jabs at others, I saw her peace being robbed.
Wow.
And my compassion for her was pricked.
Wow.
And yeah, and so this is after, the stuff that we've been through. And I was like, I didn't process it immediately in the moment, but after I was talking to
Ooh.
some folks later, and they were like, that's because your piece disrupted what was there, and they couldn't launch at you, and it just made me wish I could rewind and go back and just put my arm around her and just say, peace, be still. And
Wow.
it's so interesting how 2 years ago I never would have pictured having those types of sentiments towards her. But as you heal, it's wild to see the transformation that takes place on the inside of you, and how I never thought it would ever
Yeah.
have that kind of thing come out of my mouth.
Care, like want to care, right?
But this is something that I know to be true for me, and I will always encourage people, is be where you are.
Yeah.
Like, you just are where you are in the process. You're not going to stay there.
Yeah.
You better not stay there. That's what I'm here for, to make sure you don't stay there. But honor where you are, honor what you're feeling, honor your process, because it's where you are. And like I said, you're not going to stay there forever. And let the Lord meet you where you are, and take you to the next, take you out of that space, and process it and feel it, and like, it's okay. All of it's okay. And the thing is, the boundaries are super important, especially if you have an accumulation. If you got a backup, well, you better go ahead and retreat where you need to retreat, get supportive people around you, and get healed. And
Wow.
as you heal, you'll be able to have exposure to those things and respond totally different. I think that's why my brother and my dad are able to respond differently,
Yeah.
because they're at a different space in their level of healing and coping.
Yeah. Wow, that is so huge. I love that you're doing this. I mean, there's many of us who have to deal with this, and like Janet's saying here, like even family is we can't separate. They always are in our life. Like it's such a different dynamic. You can walk away from other relationships, but uh, family is hard because there's get-togethers. There it affects everybody. Like
But
my
I'm going to tell you, you
right?
got to do what you got to do, because
Yeah,
you cannot let them sink you just because they're family.
yeah.
And
And
you can't
it
let them
was
drive you to no, like that is not a free pass. And this is, and I come from a Greek family, like we do family.
yeah,
But I'm going to tell you, the best thing I did for myself is give myself permission to take that space and take that. And I didn't do it. I did it in a firm way. I did it in a clear way. And I
yeah,
allowed whatever drama needed to be created around it. Go ahead, create your drama. I'm going to go into this bubble and I'm going to go heal, because you can't heal the wound if you're being stabbed constantly.
no,
And
that's
it
true.
doesn't matter who's wielding the knife. It doesn't hurt any less.
Wow.
And I told my dad, I said, listen, because my dad and I are super close even to this day. I mean, like we never had a hiccup. And part of the reason why, I end up swallowing a little more is because of the impact that it has on my relationship with him.
Wow.
But I told him, I said, if I had a relative who was physically abusing me in some way, would you tell me to go close to them? Would you tell me to go hang out with them and go sit next to them and give them a big hug? Or would you tell me that I have your permission to keep my distance?
Mm,
Pretty sure you tell me I could keep my distance. So
yeah,
why is it any different just because it is who it is?
yeah. And
And I did.
that's how we end up enabling, like enabling kills. It
Yeah.
kills relationships, but people die. People die from enabling because there are addictions and there are suicide, there are murders. People die because we don't be truthful. We're not truthful with them. And when I got called a liar, I actually went to God and I said, "Where have I lied?" And he said, "In all the years that you didn't stand up and
Mm,
say what you were seeing, what you were doing." So the enemy had an open door to call me a liar because I didn't speak
speak up.
up. I didn't have a voice. And so I did something that allowed them to finally say it to me. But all along, in the unconscious, they
Mm-hmm.
knew I wasn't saying I don't like how you treat me. So they would put me out in front of other people, serve
Mm-hmm.
me out all the time because they didn't they didn't hear me say, I don't like
Right.
you, but they knew
Right.
it. Like, I don't like how you're treating me. I don't like you when you're like this, but I have to love you, so that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the relationships that you have like that. I wanna encourage people too, and I'm sure this is a part of your thing. Tell the truth. Like,
Tell the truth from the devil, right?
yeah, you keep getting beaten up. You told the truth by taking the distance. You said, "I'm not
Mm-hmm.
putting up with this anymore." I believe, like, and I started this interview with saying secrets kill, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so basically, that's what I'm learning is I need to tell the truth. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like how you treat me. I don't feel good when I'm around you. I don't feel praised. I actually, when I look back over our life, I don't think I ever heard you affirm me. So you think it's about me, but it's actually about you always, right? So this turning that and knowing the truth for yourself. That's where we get all confused is I believed a lie. And I believe that I needed to kowtow or do what, to make them happy or whatever, many different relationships. But in the end of it, I'm not any better off. I didn't have a real relationship. So I speak that for any of you who are listening. I'm sharing a little bit more vulnerably than I usually do, because it's very real.
Mhm.
I have lost people that I didn't stand up and say, I love you so much. This is not okay. And you're hurting people. And you're affecting the people around you. How can
Mhm.
I help you? Instead, I let it become we let it become a weapon to us, and then we can't help. So it's huge that God allowed you to have that opening because you will put your arm around her next time because
Yeah.
you're
Well, and it's funny because I saw her. He gave me another opportunity to be around her very soon after, and I did, and I was much warmer to her than I've been in years.
see,
And it's an interesting line to walk too, because with them it only takes a little bit for them to, like the
yeah,
enemy only needs a toehold to gain a foothold and build a stronghold.
yeah.
So like I'm like, you're getting a toe, honey, but don't get excited.
I know, and it's they may never have what they wanted to have, and you may never have what you long to have. But I
I
pray that
This is the
God,
thing, I already know that I won't, and
yeah,
that's because there's going to have to be deliverance and like total transformation on and so that's part of what you have to come to. It's part of that whole truth thing.
wow,
It's You have to come to terms with reality, and this
yeah,
is big, and this may be one of the last things because I don't know how much time we've got left, but I think one of the biggest um, parts of the trap that happens to people in these dynamics is the wishing that they could have the relationship. It's like they have this picture of what they want it to be, and they idealize a relationship, and they keep reaching for something that they're never going to have. Like that other person
wow,
doesn't even really have the capacity to give that to you. So you're
wow,
clamoring for something you're never going to have. So like I'm
wow,
never going to have. Thankfully, God gave me surrogates in my life that taught me what that taught me nurture. Well, I mean, I was nurturing her, so like I
yeah,
was already maternal to her. It was just flip flopped. They
yeah,
call it parentification.
yeah,
That's that's a term.
yeah,
So my mothering and my concept of love and all of that stuff came from surrogates, because I had surrogates in my life
mm,
who were good examples of mothers and mothering and all of that. So that was one rescue. So, but I had to come to grips with the fact that I'm not going to have that mother daughter. I'm not going to have a mother daughter relationship. The one that I have is the one that I have,
yeah,
and the one that I have is how we decide to navigate and create it. But let's not romanticize it and turn it into something it's not, because it's not.
yeah,
And I think that's that's because that was
wow,
from birth. But when you sign up for certain relationships, and this one's free for everybody out there. Part of the cycle with narcissists specifically is idealization, devaluation, discard. And so everything's wonderful. And, oh, you're my
mm,
soulmate, and you're the best thing sliced bread, and blah 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 blah. And then pretty soon it's, you can't do anything right. And then dart, 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 tear you down, tear you down, tear you down, until eventually they toss you out, or somehow there's some form of discard. But they tear you down, tear you down. And
mm,
so I watched that cycle in my parents my entire life. I
wow,
watched idealization. So when I heard the term, I was like, oh, there's a word for it. And the same thing with the whole victim, villain, rescuer triangle. They're big fans of that one too.
wow.
So, and that, those stories, I'm giving away a lot of my material, but,
We can never
you
capture
know,
the vast. But wow, I didn't even believe. I can't believe we went this long. It's a topic that you just go in. Wow. Well, Despina, could you close us in prayer? First, tell us what time are you going live? You're going December 27th to
right
31st.
now I have it at 1 o'clock. I am open to shifting the time, because if I get people in Australia that want to be in the challenge, then I'm willing to shift to be with the majority. So for
Yeah.
now, I just put a stake in the sand, and I said 1 p.m. Eastern. And then, I'm willing to move it around. But right now, that's what
Well,
we're shooting
thank
for.
you. I'm gonna check it out myself. We all can use help in this. We
Mhm.
all. I just think God's given you nuggets, and He's blessed you to go in and look at this. And some of us will never take it to that level. We've been through it, and we can bring gold in our experience. But to bring what you have is such a help. It's hope, like literally saving lives. I mean, there's times that I know that mentally, emotionally, I thought I can't take this anymore. And God brought me through.
Mhm.
Um, but we don't want to shut down, guys. We want to move forward and heal and live in the present and not shut down. And that's what God's showing me. And so you have wealth and gold to help in how do I set this as my boundary. This is me in the here and now, and I love that. I just celebrate that, and I know that you're going to have masses of people coming, and God has called you to this. So before we close, I know we went over, guys, but if you stuck out this long, obviously it matters deep to you, and you're going to be at the challenge. Would you pray, just covering for those who hear this now or later, and for the people in their lives that may be dealing with this, that they know that they want to send to your challenge as well.
I'm already gonna probably cry. Father, I just thank you for all of those who are listening, and I thank you that you are and have been all that you've been for me, and that now I'm blessed with the opportunity to take all of that and share that with others and connect them to you, and so that you could take them on their journey, to bring the freedom that you want to bring to them, the health and the wholeness and the freedom, not necessarily in that order. But I just thank you, for all of the ways that you have broken this down for me, and put it together so that I can deliver and dispense this truth and dispense these tools, and bring light and life and hope and help. Um, and that you are at the center of it all, and you are the one who is the author of our lives and have ordered our steps, and you are the healer and the comforter and the sustainer, through all of it. And so I just give you praise for that, and I just trust that you will bring those that are ready for this now,
Mm.
and that you would put this in front of those who are ready now, or that it would be the lifeline that you intended it to be. Um, and that all of who you are and who you want to be for us will be known, and will be received, and will be embraced, and will be that all of the freedom and the healing and the wholeness that Jesus died to give us will reach those who need it most in this time and in this season. And we just thank you, um, for all that you are and all that you've been, and just give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Wow, thank you so much. Girl, you are an overcomer, and I understand because of my life journey, and I'm just like, wow, way to rise up, way to
Yep,
step
going
up.
back into the fire and
Yeah,
pull some more out.
but you know what's a testimony is coming back into a relationship but differently, and understanding how to love. I think that's the most powerful piece of what you shared today in testimony is you aren't giving up, and you stepped away, but you're never coming back in the same.
And I'm not coming in, and I'm not trying to fix her, and I'm not trying to change her. I'm loving her where she
True.
is,
Yeah. Just be.
knowing what she brings,
Yeah. Yeah.
but still.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I just pray a blessing for you as you step into this. And as the people come in, that you will have the strength to deal with the pain of what these people have walked through. Because I know how huge that is. So God, I thank you that Despina, God, will have the strength, and that you will bring the ones in that are just so, this is a lifeline for them. God, that they will find her. However that may happen, God, they will find this, and they will get hope. They will get help, and they'll get healing in Jesus' name. Thank you, God. Wow. Well, it's been wonderful. We went 45 minutes, guys. I'm sorry. But it was worth it.
I have a backstage too, and it's because of this, to be able to have the interaction, because it's big.
Well, believe me, I'll be sending to people who aren't in Find Challenges as well, that don't even know what a challenge is. But they know what a challenge is when it comes to narcissism, but they don't know what an online challenge is. But there are people that I will be sending in outside of this group as well. And I hope you guys will, as you know, with people that you know are dealing with this. God bless.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great
much.
Christmas. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.